Welcome, everybody, to the AZ Lax Report. I'm your host, Brian Patillo, and I'm here today with my co-host, Alex Garwood. Beautiful Sunday morning here in Arizona, and we are here to give you the latest and greatest lacrosse content in State 48. Alex, how are you doing this morning, and what have you been up to since our first episode premiered last week?
Oh, man, I am doing great. We've got a game against Spire Academy here in a couple hours, so I'm going to be kind of finishing up here with you and then heading over to Scottsdale Prep Academy for our game. Never played there, but I think it's a turf field, so should be nice. What have you been up to?
Yeah, so, this earlier this week, we people who listened to episode 1, we talked a little bit with Nick Miller about golf, so I've proclaimed to a few people that I found my golf swing, and I got a tee time later this afternoon, so I know Thursday I go to the range to get a little warm-up session in, and unfortunately, I'm very sad to share this, but my golf swing is missing again, and I don't know where it went. I'm going to have to put up some posters or something, try to find it. Now, there are some people, the haters and losers, my brother Cody, who might say that I never had my golf swing to begin with. And those people would be liars, Alex, so don't listen to them. And I do hope that I find it again today. So that's what I've been up to this week. And I'm excited for another great week of lacrosse and to continue this show. So
that makes a lot more sense, and I thank you for providing that context. Cody actually sent me a text of a milk carton with with a picture of your face, like kind of crudely like pasted onto the milk carton. Man. And now it all makes sense that your golf swing was missing. So credit to Cody for capitalizing on your downfall there.
Man, yeah. Well, we're gonna get it back, and we'll see how he does this afternoon when he gets out there. But let's shift to lacrosse, and just a quick thanks to everybody who listened to episode 1. We got a lot of really good feedback.
Awesome feedback.
We're gonna continue to work to make it better and bring everybody a really good product. So. Continue to send us messages, like our posts, send us comments, subscribe, share it, tell your friends, tell your family, and do what you can to help us grow this program. So thanks everybody for listening. We've made it to episode 2, so we're officially a series, which is great. And with that, let's jump into the lacrosse. And we're going to jump in our weekly rundown here. I want to go back a little bit. Normally we'll try to be within the calendar week, but I want to talk about last week, if you listened to Coach Harbison's interview, we talked about Mater Dei and their kind of out-of-state competition. And on that Saturday, which actually happened before the podcast released, there was a Brophy Mater Dei game. And, I get the chance to do color commentary for those games. And, I don't think it's an exaggeration. I thought about this a lot, Alex, but this was the best high school game I've seen in the 4 years I've been out here and affiliated with it. Brophy was down 6 goals at one point. They roar back. They were down 13-8 going into the fourth quarter. Carter Barkley White scores the go-ahead goal with 1 minute left. They hold on for the win. Eric Volson has a big night, 6 points, 3 goals, 3 assists. And Dion James, their face-off specialist, 16 face-off wins, 10 ground balls. And this game had it all. It had energy. It had a big crowd. You had a rivalry that's been established with these teams. You have players who know each other well, including 2 talented players on Mater Dei who used to play out here in Arizona. So the game itself was exciting and just high level. So and you have that out-of-state factor, right? We always want to recognize when our teams are playing out-of-state. We're going to talk about a couple other games later, but really good game. And if you haven't watched it and you're interested, the link is on YouTube with APN video. You can watch the replay of that game, but it really was one of the best games I've seen since I've been out here.
Yeah, I would say it's one of the best that I've seen as well. I was at the GCU game, and I was watching it on my phone, so I was kind of keeping up with kind of both of the games at the same time. And as you were kind of going over, what you saw in that game, I was kind of thinking back to, the best high school games that I've seen in Arizona, and I kind of like turned my mind back to that state championship game with Boulder Creek and Brophy. With the overtime winner by Max Armitage. I mean, that to me, with the state championship on the line, the amount of people that were at that game, that probably takes the crown for me for best high school game that I've seen in Arizona. But Man, this has got to be a close second.
Yeah, and you mentioned that one. That actually was the other game that I was thinking about as the only other one that kind of compared. So I think for me, maybe I'm a little biased since I got involved with being able to call the game and do the color commentary, and that's kind of what tilted the scales for me. But you mentioned a great game for the championship, great internal Arizona competitions. That's another one to harken back to, and that was a good Boulder Creek team that year.
Absolutely. Let's take it to Tuesday night, where West Valley defeated NDP's V2 team 6-5. Those low-scoring games are always just defensive battles of will at that point. Who wants it more? West Valley did that night, and Higley got their revenge after an early season loss to Brophy V2 by a score of 16-5. Teague Mullins pulling a 5-goal effort. Double duty covering the faceoff X for an injured Fogo. Freshman Max Wagner added 3 assists as he leads all the ALL with 12 assists on the year. Brian, what other games happened on Tuesday night?
Yeah, we also had Arcadia defeating Cactus Shadow 16-6, and we're gonna give Davis Witherspoon, the Spoon Man, some love here. He actually had a hot streak.
There you go.
Yeah, that started against Coronado, but he had 17 points in 2 games, 14 goals and 3 assists. So that started, as I mentioned, Arcadia had a chance to play Coronado and to beat them. That's good out-of-state competition. They're from the Vegas area, I believe. So, Again, good representation from AZ Lacrosse. He had 8 points in that game. Jordan Fataras Nelson, 21 face-off wins. So great effort there. And Spoonman, nice job there. Maybe he's another one we'll have to. He's a little bit of a character. I've got to coach him too. So hopefully we get him get him on the pod here too. Also, we saw Desert Vista defeat Corona by a score of 8-5. I think we previewed that one last week. Coach PJ Rovinelli for Corona, previous coach at Desert Vista, gets his first matchup there. Comes up short against his previous team, but we know he'll be back. And then the big game Tuesday night, the Fight Like Flow game, Brophy versus Pinnacle. And for everybody who's interested, and I hope everyone is, we've got a great interview with Mary Kay Rodgers at the end of the podcast here.
Phenomenal.
She goes through the story of Kylie Rodgers and how this game came about. And I don't want to, we can't really do it justice. So we just ask, listen at the end if you want to know about that game and the story behind it, and recognizing in the memory of Kylie Rodgers, and I think everything that we want to get out of that game. And Alex, you got to coach in it, unfortunately, for your team. It was a rough one, but any thoughts on that game from the lacrosse standpoint?
So after the Fight for Flow kind of ceremony at the beginning of the game, we got into the action, and it was 2-1 after the first quarter in Brophy's favor, and then kind of losing Cam and one of our best midfielders, and just a couple unfortunate bounces. The wheels kind of came off, so to speak. I don't know that we won a face off in 2 quarters, and I think we had 2 offensive possessions that weren't just transition or taking our poles, taking the ball down and scoring. So that was a rough one. I've asked my guys to kind of flush that game from memory, and you're allowed one mulligan, and there are teams at much higher levels than us that have gotten blown out in similar fashion and have gone on to win the national championship. So I'm not worried about that. It's not where you're at now. It's where you're at in May. So kind of cleaning up the rest of the action. So Boulder Creek defeats Oro Valley 19-10. NDP continued their undefeated streak by taking down Perry 8-5. We're going to hear from Jake Traylor in our player interview shortly and talk about their start to the season. Brian, what happened on Friday night?
Yeah, just a couple updates from the most recent slate of games. Brophy Varsity 2 defeats NDP Varsity 2 6-3. And then Arcadia defeats Corona 15-7. We mentioned them earlier, and Davis Witherspoon over there. And in this game, Luke Mellon, 8 points in that game. So
wow.
Great job by Luke. He's been doing really well, and he does lead the league right now in points. So he has 23 points so far in 4 games. So great great effort by Luke individually. And, little reminder, all those coaches, make sure you're updating the league site so we can confirm we've got our up-to-date stats and bring that to everybody here. So good job by Luke. Good job by Arcadia. And then one other game mentioned, again, game for Pinnacle there. We mentioned Foothills coming up from Tucson Friday night. I think you had a chance to play them. How'd that game go, Alex?
It went kind of the same as all our games have gone so far this season. So we knew this one was kind of a must-win for us. We drove down to Tucson last year, played against a really tough Hills team and came up short, lost in overtime. So them having to drive up here, given our chance for revenge, we definitely tried to take advantage of that. We scored 12 goals in just 2 quarters of that game. So the offense definitely, kind of came to life, but then, we had 2 quarters where I think we just had 2 goals combined. So we got to figure out how to put a full game together. And when we do, I think we're going to be, pretty lethal. Conti had 5 goals. Our LSM, Nikki J, had a hat trick. So, I think we had Davion, getting 3 assists, very unselfish play. Aiden Ray once again just making really nice saves for us and allowing our offense to really kind of shine in transition. And we win 100% on man up, which is great as the offensive coordinator. That's the numbers you want to see. So it was a good night for us.
Yeah, that's great, awesome. So and with that said, I mentioned about the coaches too, and we've for everyone listening, we want to really highlight what happens in these games and not just go over scores. So players. Make sure your coaches know about the AZ Lax report. We've reached out to them, but feel free to give them a little reminder that we want to recognize your performances and what happens in the team and some of the storylines. So we'll continue to bring that information to our audience, and I think adding a little more flavor to the scores and kind of recognize those players is it makes our job a little more exciting, and I think it's exactly what our intent was here. We don't want to just go through and read the box score. I know it might have been a little dry in episode 1 when we were catching everybody up, but I think this will be how we do it going forward, and I'm excited. So with that said, I'm going to just kind of quickly go over our current standings. Now, we'll still tease it. We're still working on the AZ Lax report, power rankings, our own kind of rankings, but just in terms of wins and losses right now, just to keep everybody updated on the state of the league. Grand Canyon Conference, Brophy's in first place, 5-0, Notre Dame, 4-0, followed by Perry, 3-2, Desert Vista, 3-3, Pinnacle, 2-4, Boulder Creek, 1-3. In the Desert Conference, we have Arcadia, 3-1, Corona, 3-2, Foothills, 1-2, Oro Valley, 1-3, Scottsdale, 0-2, and in the Cactus Conference, we have Brophy Varsity 2, 4-2, Cactus Shadows, 3-1, Higley, 3-2, West Valley, 3-2, Notre Dame Prep Varsity 2 is 1-4, Sal Point is 0-3, and Cactus is 0-4. So that's your current standings. And then as we look at the week coming up, I think there's really, there's one game I've got my eye on, Alex, and that's Tuesday night. We'll see Perry play Brophy. I believe it's at Brophy Sports Complex. So that's going to be the rematch. Yeah, rematch of state championship game. And if you remember last year, Perry did defeat them in the regular season early. But Brophy got their revenge that year in the state championship as they defeated them for what was their second in a row, right? Third in a row?
Yeah.
Second in a row?
Yep,
yeah. Second in a row championship. So that should be a good one. And, something also for our audience, feel free to send us some messages if you want to share things you're looking forward to or excited about in the league. We'd like to call those out as well, too. We release these episodes on Sundays, typically recording them either that day or the day before. So let us know what you're looking for, and we'll help share it and get some more eyes on all the lacrosse action out here. All right. Let's see. Anything else going on? What are you watching this week, Alex? Anything new going on?
Man, we're probably going to be looking to see the ACC get some revenge this week. Maybe, hopefully. There were a lot of upsets in college lacrosse this week.
Yeah, the Ivy League, I think, was showing some dominance.
Yeah, they did. They Penn beat Duke, which I was watching that game, and it was super rainy. The rain does, pull a really big factor in allowing teams to pull upsets, which is, kind of what you want to see, right? A closer game.
Yeah.
And
I don't know if the players out here will know that, though. I don't know how many end up playing in games in the rain out here.
yeah, for me, kind of growing up in Washington, it was pretty much an everyday occurrence. We had to leave our bag open in the garage just so that it wasn't stinky the next day, and all you kind of put dryer sheets in the bag. That's a little pro tip for the listeners there.
There you go for the listeners.
Yeah, Army beat Syracuse, which kind of just lets me know that they're for real. Because Syracuse has just been on a heater recently. That Joey Spallina guy had 7 goals, 2 assists yesterday, so he's pretty good.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy just kind of watching lacrosse at the highest level and seeing what guys are doing, what stars are coming up. Kind of anticipating where people are going to go in the PLL draft. What I'm looking forward to watching next week is number 7 Syracuse takes on Johns Hopkins on Saturday at 4:30 Arizona time. So we'll probably be discussing how that game goes next week.
Yeah, that's a good matchup there. A lot of history, and that'll be a great one to watch. And the college season really getting underway now, which is exciting. And we're ALL focused, but we've got some thoughts and things we do want to expand and maybe talk about some other things. So let us know, listeners, if you want us to talk about some of these NCAA games and some other stuff in our episodes here, and we'll incorporate maybe a little more of that as well too. So we're excited. Lacrosse, it's springtime. It's well underway here. So thanks everybody for enjoying our first episode, all the feedback, and thank you for listening to episode 2 here. We are going to kick it off to our interviews. We're going to start with our player interview. As we mentioned, we have Jake Traylor from Notre Dame Prep. He'll talk about his team, the start to their season, and then we will follow that with a really special interview with Mary Kay Rodgers talking about Kylie Rodgers and the Fight Like Flow game and the story there, and ultimately the Fight Like Flow Foundation. So really hope everybody enjoys our interviews this week, and we will talk with you all next week. Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, guys. We are excited to welcome to the podcast defensive stalwart for Notre Dame Prep. This senior LSM has propelled NDP to a 4-0 start in ALL play and routinely competes against his opposition's best player. Next year, he will join the Southwestern University Pirates, competing in NCAA Division III competition. Please welcome to the podcast, Jake Traylor. Jake, how you doing today?
Good. I'm feeling good. How about you guys?
Great. Can't complain.
Yeah, got a nice little Sunday morning conversation here.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Just for a better way to start your morning.
For the listeners, it is 8:22 a.m. on Sunday, and we've got Jake Traylor here. Jake, Notre Dame is off to a real hot start right now, 4-0 record in league play. The only other undefeated team besides Brophy. What do you credit for your team's great start this season?
Well, I gotta first go to our team here. We have really gelled as a team. We more than we have in the current years that I've been here. Even though I've been in Arizona for 3 years, it's got to be the best looking team I've seen by far. We just have understand how each of us played. Our defense regularly goes out after practices and we get food or we just do resting together. Like we all just understand each other. Our offense is clicking together. It just is all looking good. We're all helping each other propel each and every one of us to a win. And even though we don't start off the strongest because we've had 3 comeback games, we still are there to finish the job.
Absolutely. I think, Brian and I have both been a part of, championship teams in the past. And I think he would agree with me when I say that the best teams that I've been a part of have gelled the most off the field. I think that kind of bonding is really important, and it takes a while to gel, and the more time you spend with your teammates, the better. Am I off base there, Brian? Or are you?
I think you're right. I think when we talk with players, talk with coaches, the ability for a team to kind of connect and just have that camaraderie and brotherhood is really a key piece towards success. So really exciting to hear that, within your defensive unit and with your team there that you guys have had that success and are coming together with that. That's great. So we definitely love recognizing the team and their credit there. Let's give you a little conversation individually. Though we want to recognize you here, and we know as a defensive player, it's not always the same. We had Nick Miller last week on, and we talked about him having like a 6 goal game. You're an LSM. Obviously, it's a little different in terms of stats and things. So when you're going into a game and you're getting ready to play, what are you focusing on in your preparation before that game? And then how do you kind of measure your performance? What's your goals when you walk into a game as an LSM?
Mm. That's a great question. For me at least, I like to focus on getting the ground balls and doing whatever is necessary for me to play the best. So if I'm guarding if I'm guarding like Nick, for example, who had a great game against us, I'm gonna definitely rely on my defense more that game and focus on one-on-one defense rather than trying to get the ground ball or trying to get a cause turnover. I'm just there to stop someone. But most of the games, I'm there to make sure we can get the ball and start generating it on offense. So whether that's picking the ground ball off the face-off or taking away from someone else.
Yeah, I love that. I think transition such a key part of the game. We see it all the time, and LSM really key part of that too. So, and I like how you mentioned just that, within your game plan and your team, sometimes it calls for a different task. And that's, I think, the key of being a good player when you're in LSM. You've got to be able to do some different things. So let's add to that a little bit more. I want to stir the pot a little bit here for you.
Mhm.
You've gotten to play against a lot of good players, not just in practices with your team, but ALL competition, tournaments, and things like that. And I'll let you answer this with more than one person if you want. But
Mm.
who's the toughest player that you have to defend against right now,
Ooh,
or have
that's a
defended against?
that's a great question. I mean, by far, I mean, I gotta say, the hardest player I ever had to guard in Arizona when I was here was, of course, Cole Rassis, big guy going to
Yeah,
Air Force.
that's a good answer.
He 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 definitely, I hate to admit it, but he definitely got me on a couple fakes for sure. With that nasty fake shot. So he's got to be the toughest player I've had to guard. But currently, I got to give I got to give it to Dylan Finder.
Oh,
He
okay.
he gave me a hard run when we played Perry the second time in the first half of the game. Like he was making me bite on trail checks and everything. Like it took me the second half to finally fully go in and just play hard one-on-one defense with him. And luckily it worked out for the better for me, but he definitely is one of the most shifty and most unpredictable guys I've had to guard.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, Cole Rassis, you mentioned obviously, and that big fear of God move that he
Mhm.
does. I've seen that be successful. And Dylan, that's a good shout out. Dylan's actually somebody, Alex, I want us to get on the podcast. So hopefully we'll have him as a
Yeah,
future
definitely.
guest. And
Mhm.
I've had a chance to coach him too. Great player. Gets north south as a midfielder, dodging really well. He's going to Rutgers next year, so
Mhm.
pretty good player over there in Dylan. So good recognition for that. And
Mhm.
that's a good one there, Jake.
Mhm.
Appreciate your transparency there and the shout out to your competition.
Yeah, no problem. Whenever talent sees talent, that's what I always say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I like that there was a mix too, because obviously Korasis is, a big bodied guy to try to defend, and then you have, Finder who's a little bit more shifty. So, that I always kind of see, offensive players as, kind of different kind of traits that they all have that kind of help them be effective at what they do. There's the finishers, there's, big dodgers like Cole. There are, finesse speed guys. There are a bunch of different kind of players that you're gonna be asked to defend, especially at the next level. But before we get to that, I want to kind of get back to where it all started. How'd you get introduced to lacrosse? I know we all have our kind of stories on how the game found us or we found the game. How
Mhm.
did that start for you?
Well, ooh, this for if anyone's a baseball listener, I wouldn't be too happy about this, but
Uh,
Basically, how I got introduced is when I was in, because I used to live in California my whole life, and when we were in T-ball, there was some kid that couldn't hit the ball for the life of him. So I was just standing there bored, and I looked behind me, and there was a lacrosse practice happening. I had no idea what the sport was, but I saw shiny helmets and long sticks. So I'm like, oh, this looks really fun. So after the game, I went up to my mom and was like, hey, what's that sport over there? She had no idea either. So she looked it up. We found it was lacrosse. I'm like, I really want to try that. And she's like, okay, just go ahead. And we bought we bought some old pads for my cousin who used to play. So he gave me his old stuff. They found the local travel team, which was Team NorCal at the time, and tried out for them. Made the team, and by that I just fell in love with the sport and started playing it more and more, getting more competitive each time.
Nice. That's an awesome story. So
Mm.
NorCal, then, are you a 49ers fan?
Oh heck no.
Ah,
That's a
I
tough one.
my mom is a huge 49ers fan, but I I was 49ers fan for probably 6 years, but after their loss to Ravens in the Super Bowl, I deferred to Green Bay.
wow.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Mm.
Packers.
You know, that
Nice.
happened on my actual birthday, right? I've been a 49ers fan my
Really?
entire life, yeah. And the my birthday is February 3rd, so
Mhm.
with February being a leap year, sometimes, my birthday
Yeah.
falls on Super Bowl, sometimes it's the day before, the day after, but the
Mhm.
actual the only time I can remember that my birthday was on the actual Super Bowl, my favorite team was playing and they lost. So I had like a bunch of people over, to celebrate both my birthday and the Super Bowl type of thing, and they ended up
Mhm.
losing, and a bunch of people were just talking smack to me all day. So it was kind of one of the worst
Yeah.
birthdays ever.
Yeah.
Anyways, that was a pretty painful memory for me, but
Mhm.
lacrosse, has probably had a lot of better memories. Do you
Mhm.
have a favorite that kind of sticks out that's purely lacrosse related?
Oh, definitely. I gotta say it was the time I took a Braveheart. That's definitely my favorite lacrosse
Oh
memory
yeah,
ever.
like travel ball or
Yeah,
yeah.
it was a funny story. We were doing the San Diego Challenge, I think. I was with Team NorCal, and we the refs were like kind of not liking the other team as much, so they were kind of favoring our side more.
Mm.
And the refs knew we were the better team, but it was tied because their coach was allowing the players to do dirty stuff to us, like late hits and weird shots and that kind of stuff. So they call Braveheart, and I'm thinking, oh, they're gonna let an offensive player go for it, and they put me out there. I'm like, uh-oh, and I still have the video of it. I got won the face off, ran down, wide open shot, hit the crossbar,
Oh,
Oh
and
my gosh.
and I don't know how, but I was able to catch up to the guy, get the ground ball back, and score on that one, luckily. But yeah, that's got to be my favorite lacrosse memory, winning that Braveheart for the team.
that's a good one, and again, versatility of you as a player being able to get up and
Mhm.
down the field
Mhm.
and not only play defense but score a goal there. So that's
Mhm.
awesome. So hopefully you'll have some continued future memories between your NDP season now and then your future lacrosse plans. So we
Mhm.
mentioned in the introduction you're committed to go to Southwestern University and
Mhm.
play for the Pirates Division III team. So why don't you tell us how you ended up at Southwestern or going to Southwestern and what were the reasons you picked that school?
Oh, certainly. So I picked Southwestern Pirates because I feel like that's a great school that I could see myself being at for 4 years. They have a great program through business, through anything that I want to do. Because my plan is to major in business and minor in psychology, and they both have very, very good programs for that. So I picked there for that, but they also have a very good lacrosse team. Their coach has a full family atmosphere. And even though I got offers from all divisions, from Division 1 through MCLA division, it was just, it felt like Southwestern was the right choice for me. It just guided me to there because when I visited there, it seemed like all the players weren't like trying to force me to go there. They're just like, "Hey, this is a great school. Let's show you what we can do." And yeah, that's basically it. Like all the other ones I visited, like High Point and Limestone in Indianapolis, Stony Brook, all those, they're like, you have to come here and you'll play, which then the coach would tell me something different. Like I'd play junior year or I'd play sophomore year. It was very, very untrustworthy through different people for different schools, but Southwestern I felt like gave me my full trust, and that's what prompted me to go there.
Mm.
Yeah, and I think we mentioned, I think Nick in our last interview said the same thing, but for everybody listening at home, I love how one of your first things you cited was the school and the program, the academics. And,
Mhm.
we always tell people lacrosse is great, such a key part of it, but you are making decisions for your future. And it's really important to keep that in mind when you're making it. And hey, listen, I was a Division III guy at Tufts, so I'm all
Mhm.
for it. And I knew there were a lot of D1 teams that we easily could have played against and beat. So
Mhm.
no shame with that at all when you're comparing the divisions there. So that's awesome.
Mhm.
Well, we're definitely looking forward to seeing what you do at the next level after the
Mhm.
conclusion of this season.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely.
What advice would you give to the younger guys in Arizona coming up that have aspirations to play in college too?
Oh, that's ooh. I will always say hit the ball, no matter what point of the day it is, no matter if it's 115 degrees out or it's freezing cold, go hit the ball. That's got to be one of the most important things because when I first started playing, I could barely catch and throw, and I would spend I probably at least 5 hours every week when I first started just doing wall ball. I mean, split that up across different days, of course, but just 5 hours every week just trying to hit the ball, trying to learn new passes, trying to learn how your stick feels and catches. Because once you can do that, you can understand how to play the sport next. Because your body will immediately know how to defend someone if you have the right coach, or learn how to attack someone if you have the right coach. So, my advice is definitely hit the ball, trust your coaches, and fully trust yourself that you can go to the next level because if you have any doubt, that's what will hold you back.
Mm. And have fun. I would add to that and just say have fun with it.
Oh,
You
of
don't
course.
you don't need to just hit the wall and you got to do 25 right and then 50 left and then just
Mhm.
repeat like 100 times. Like you don't really need to do that. Like you can
Yeah,
put some headphones in,
yeah.
vibe out to some music and
Mhm.
do some passes on the run. Behind the back, be creative with your passing, throw right,
Mhm.
catch left, like whatever you guys need to do to get yourself out there. Um, in terms of things that you enjoy, outside of the lacrosse field, like what kind of hobbies do you have?
I honestly now since it's season, I don't got much of a social life outside, but
do you
uh,
do you collect anything?
uh, I mean, I like collecting shoes. I got a couple shoes in my room that
Okay,
I really enjoy. Like,
Sneaker guy.
yeah, huge, huge sneaker guy, I'd say. There's a lot of stuff that I care to drop a little too much money on for sneakers, but it's fine. It's fine. They look good.
are you one of those guys that I see in tents, like camping outside of Nike, like before big sneaker releases, or?
Oh God, no. I wouldn't go that far. There plus Nike's not releasing that good stuff recently, so
There
unless
you
it'd be
go.
a new
Be on the
unless it'd
lookout,
be a
Nike.
new Off-White or a new Jordan or something that I really like, I would maybe consider putting up a tent.
Gotcha.
All right. Well, we also, you mentioned your team and the tight knit camaraderie there. So we want to give you a chance to talk about them a little bit. We're going to kind of put you on the spot here with this one here. So in the
Yeah.
team, we know the locker room vibe so important. So who's the clown on the team? Who's the guy who's kind of bringing the energy and keeping it light for everybody?
Hmm. Ooh, that's a great question. I'm trying to think because we got a couple of them. Let's see. I I would say if we because we had an early morning game yesterday, and since everyone's kind of groggy in the mornings and not energy, I like to mess with some people, and I walked into the locker room yelling at everyone like, "Let's go, let's go." So I would say I'm one of them. I like to get everyone hyped and get around each other, but I got to give it to my guy Cody Wells. He's our D midi slash long pole. He's always bringing a lot of energy to it. He's always yelling at people to get better or yelling at people and making jokes in between. Like if we're saying we're two, he'll make some kind of joke and then you'll lose your focus. And sure enough, in practice, they'll score.
Yeah, there we go. I like that. And then who's so you talk about coming to the locker room, right? Who's the DJ? Who's running the aux cord, controlling the music? I don't even know if they have aux cords anymore, Alex. I think we might be
It's
too old
probably
for that.
all
It's probably
Bluetooth now, bro.
Bluetooth, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But who's in charge of the music and what's the favorite songs there for the team?
Hmm. I bring the speakers. We fluctuate between guys, but usually the guys who end up with this aux is uh Cody, Cooper Perry, or Owen Meyer.
Okay.
Those guys usually get it because they play music that we all like, and since we're in the locker room, we can play a little bit more loose of stuff instead of being out on the field where everyone can hear it.
All right, I like it. So what's your if you had to pick one warm up song to get you going, what would it be? And I
Hmm.
know we're putting you on the spot here, but
Hmm. Well, it's kind of a tradition to listen to Dreams and Nightmares by Meek Mill before every single game. Know that song by heart now, so that's got to be probably my pregame song every single time.
okay. I like
Hmm.
that. Alex, what was yours? Did you have one?
Yeah, it's probably like one of those. Brian, I don't know if you remember some of those old like NCAA lacrosse playoff commercials where the 30-second Tomorrow's songs would come on, like the like This Is War or like Vox Populi or like one of those ones. So
Okay, yeah.
that kind of gets like my nostalgia, brain going, like listening to that. So that probably fire me up for sure.
Yeah, I like that. I had a lot of I varied, kind of depending on my mood. I knew you said AC/DC Hell's Bells, that was a good one. And then I
Ooh.
mean
Dude,
Eminem
Thunderstruck
was
is electric.
yeah, Thunderstruck's great. You said Eminem Till I Collapse has always been kind of
Mm.
like on my in my rotation there, and a bunch of other rock songs
Mhm.
too. So yeah, I got to
Mhm.
get definitely an energy, more of a rock guy probably for the pregame. So I don't know if Meek Mill's on my warm up list, but good to see the variety out there. So
Mhm.
so with that said, Jake, we're super happy for you to join us today this morning. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you get to talk to the listeners about your experiences, your team. As
Mhm.
we mentioned in the intro, you guys are off to a great start. You've got some
Mhm.
big games coming up. So
Yeah.
we want to thank you again and good luck in the rest of your season.
All right. Thank you guys.
Thanks, Jake.
Thank you.
We are very excited and grateful to have our next guest join the podcast today. Usually we have an intro that talks about a player or coach's history, but this is a special guest, and I think the story in her words is going to be better than anything that I can share. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Mary Kay Rodgers.
Hi, thank you both for having me so much. It's an honor. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, really excited to have you. So, just a little background to set the stage. Last week was the third annual Fight Like Flow game between Pinnacle and Brophy, and we wanted to bring you on to talk about what that is and what it means. But let's start from the beginning. We'd like you to tell us the story of Kylie Rodgers and your family.
Of course. So Kylie is my daughter, and um, she was the most incredible human being I've ever had the pleasure of loving and knowing in my life. She she was an athlete. She played for softball 4 years for Xavier and was just an all-around incredible young woman. Fierce competitor, really, really smart, intelligent, beautiful, of course, and just an amazing person in every way. And anyone who ever met her, you couldn't help but fall in love with her after being with her for 5 minutes. She just had this infectious personality. She was really funny. She was a total comedian, and just amazing. Like I obviously, I'm biased. I'm her mom, but
That's
I
okay.
I I can't say enough great things about her. And she and my son Noah, who went to Brophy, and who I'll talk a little bit more about that whole process. Were super close. They were about 2.5 years age difference. She was his older sister. So Kylie, when she was at Xavier, she was a softball pitcher, as I said, and was fierce. Like she was really, really, really good. She had this innate ability of once she walked in the circle of just kind of letting the world around her disappear and just focus completely on the game. And she was a gamer. Like she really, really pitched well. When she was the only freshman to make the Xavier varsity softball team, which at that time was really a big deal. And about, let's see, her freshman year, they did really, really well. Made it, I think, to second, third rounds of playoffs, and then unfortunately took a pretty heavy loss to Pinnacle of all schools. And then her sophomore year, around January, beginning of January, right as the season was about to really heat up, she started having pain in her right hip. And long story short, we went to several different doctors, got a couple of missed diagnoses, and ended up that in April of 2017, she was diagnosed with Ewing's sarcoma, which is a very rare form of bone cancer, and it was located in her right hip and the top part of her right femur. So as you can imagine, the world stops and then turns upside down, and you feel like you're in a washing machine. You have to make millions of decisions in split seconds because of how devastating this disease is. And so we did all of those things. She started treatment and went through a year of treatment, and it's I won't go into the details, it's horrifying, but went through a year of treatment and somehow managed to stay in school at Xavier. We were kind of the pilot program for COVID because she went to school online and she was the first one. And somehow, and I'm an educator, so I'm a teacher, and so helped her obviously as much as I could, but her grit and determination and resilience was unparalleled. Like everyone who met her in treatment, all of her nurses, all of her doctors were just in awe of her determination to beat this thing, to get better, and to get back hopefully on the field. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. She had to have a complete hip and femur replacement. So her entire right leg was basically made of titanium, and then go through 12 months of really, really rigorous chemo. But in 2018, she was pronounced cancer-free. And so we had a glorious time. She was just going into her senior year at Xavier, and had just the most incredible experience. She stayed on the softball team, but just became the manager. She couldn't obviously pitch anymore. We tried pitching. She was a right-handed pitcher. We tried pitching on the left for about 5 minutes, and that didn't work. So what she decided to do, and by the grace of God, had the most amazing coaches, teachers, and support system at Xavier, was the manager. And I think that really helped her, because I'm sure, as you can understand, the psychological impact of what she went through is there's nothing like it. She had two amazing teachers at Xavier, Dan Long, who was her APUSH, AP US history teacher, and then actually his wife, Olivia Long, who was her AP psych teacher, were instrumental in the way she kind of managed through this. And a lot of it, she had a very strategic mind and a very scientific mind. So she actually kind of looked at her whole experience from the clinical perspective, right? So not necessarily the emotional side, although that of course is part of all of this, but she was really interested in the treatments and the psychological impact. And eventually she chose to go into psychology when she went to college for a year. And so what she decided she wanted to do once she was in remission was, and every family that goes through something like this feels this way, but you want to establish something so that no one has to go through the pain that you've just gone through, right? So that looks so different for so many families, but it can be a foundation, it can be advocacy, it can be creating some sort of organization, it can be helping other organizations that currently exist. And Arizona has a lot of really good pediatric cancer organizations, of which I'll talk about a couple of them in a few moments. But she decided to start her own foundation. Her nickname was Flo when she was pitching. As a matter of fact, a lot of her teammates, when she played on Firecrackers for her travel team, and even at Xavier, because we used to actually live in Florida and moved here her 8th grade year. And so she showed up at her first softball practice in all University of Florida gear. which in, Arizona is probably not the smartest decision. And so from then on, everybody kind of, everybody knew her as Flo. And then that kind of became her fighting spirit when she was going through treatment. And so that's how Fight Like Flo, the phrase Fight Like Flo, was born. And so what she decided to do her senior year was create the Fight Like Flo Foundation. So we got all the paperwork in place. And what I think her goals were at that time was just to create mostly awareness and advocacy, right? Because we weren't really sure what we could and should do, right? It's also new, and you're dealing with trauma, and you're dealing with all of these different things. And then she went through an amazing senior year. She applied to the University of Washington, and actually UW was one of the schools that was looking at her from a softball perspective too. So it kind of worked out really well. Yeah. She was recruited by several D1 schools, but UW was one that she really just loved, and the campus is beautiful, and she loves Seattle. And I have family in Vancouver. I have my family's Canadian. So that all kind of fell into place. She applied to UW. She got in. We were super psyched. It was going to be such a great time. She was going to be a psychology major. And a week before we were supposed to leave for college, she got a bad scan and relapsed. And that, to me, was probably one of the lowest moments, because I think when you get diagnosed the first time, you don't really know what you don't know, right? You don't know what's coming. You don't have the sensibility to fear what's coming. You're thrown into this fight or flight mode, and you just fight like hell. The relapse, you know what's coming. And you also know, especially with solid tumor cancer, that the chances of remission are much, much lower. So she made a very brave decision to pull out of school and take a year off and go through treatment again. And this time the treatment was far more severe, more surgeries, radiation. It was pretty ugly. It's really ugly. And so during that period in her life, she kind of sunk into this whole piece again, and obviously couldn't play softball, couldn't even be around people because of, obviously her immune system challenges. And then COVID hits in 2020. So that adds another layer of stress to all of us, and to her especially. And so she, during that point in her life, really started to think through, and had the forethought of someone 3 times her age. I don't know how she ever had the ability to do this, but she really thought through what she wanted her legacy to be. Because I think we knew, you always hope, you always pray for the miracle, but we also kind of knew the statistical challenges ahead. So, and she also got very much into fashion at that point. That was something where, she was stuck in a room doing chemo day in and day out. So she started watching shows like Project Runway and all of these really cool fashion shows. And that became something where she really started to express her creativity. So we actually bought her a sewing machine, and she started to create stuff. It was so therapeutic for her, especially during that second relapse. That was, it kept her going and kept her going through. She managed somehow to go through all of that treatment, a bone marrow transplant, 11 different surgeries, and was once again pronounced cancer-free in November of 2020, which is unheard of.
Wow.
So that, if that doesn't show you her resilience and her dedication and her inspiration, I really don't know what does. Most people don't make it through the second round. She made it through that and a bone marrow transplant. We decided that she was going to go to UW. And so obviously because of COVID, she couldn't go in person. So she started UW online the fall of 2020. And then we got her there in January of 2021. She actually got to live on campus. She went through Rush. She got into a sorority, which was a godsend for her, and came home for spring break. And that was her last bad scan. She had another relapse. So fortunately, the remission didn't last very long. But what it did give her was a true gift of spending 6 months in Seattle. And while she was there, we transferred her care from Phoenix Children's to Seattle Children's, which is one of the premier organizations of cancer treatment. I can't say enough good things about this place. Her oncologist was the most incredible human being I've ever met in my life. His name is Tyler Ketterall, and her team there was incredible. They tried one thing after the next thing, but I think what they realized, which was so humane and wonderful, is that she really just wanted that college experience. She wanted to live, she wanted to love, she wanted to have the time of her life, and she really, really did. And she developed probably some of the deepest friendships in the shortest amount of time that I've ever seen. So and I actually moved up there so she could go to school, and then I could help her out with her treatments, because at that point she was still doing chemo, she was still doing radiation, and managing to go to school and keep a 4.0 GPA. Like, the kid was off the charts. I still don't know how she did what she did. At that point, she also really then started to understand what the future looked like and really start putting things into play in terms of what she wanted, how she wanted to take care of people. And so she created so many different game plans, so many different ideas. And I had the sense, and I'm sure, I still think this is a miracle. I had the sense to actually create a bunch of voice memos as she was talking about all this stuff. So I have all of it, which is incredible. And and she's basically gave us a roadmap of where to go next, to take care of us. Sorry.
Take all the time you need.
So, we bought her home in June of 2021 and took her on a couple of short trips so she could kind of see her favorite things. We went back to Florida. She could go back to her favorite place there. And then obviously she made the incredibly brave decision to stop treatment. And so passed away in September of 2021. And had the wherewithal. This kid was superhuman. Like, she really wasn't of this earth the more I think about it. Like, we were just all blessed to have her for the time that we did. And she planned her own celebration of life. She wrote all of her best friends letters for every amazing stage of their life, for when they graduate college, for when they get married. She has this entire game plan for her brother that is just incredible. And she just took really amazing care of all of us in the most human and beautiful and divine way I can express. So that is where Fly Like Flow came from.
Wow.
Yeah.
So sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, we know it's obviously sad and tragic. It's probably doesn't even do it justice really to the story, to describe that story and everything.
Yeah.
We're really, we know it's hard to talk about. We're really grateful for you coming on and sharing that story. I mean, I've never heard, I think, some of those details too, which was really nice. And I think people appreciate that. I think even just mentioning some of the people, the teachers, the doctors that worked with her, and I actually didn't know where the Flo nickname came from this whole time. So that was
I didn't either.
Yeah,
I didn't know it. I never
actually asked.
Yeah, a lot of people wonder about that because Kylie was her name, but she was known as Flo. Like even my son called her Flo more than he called her anything else. So that was her persona, which was beautiful.
And I think what we'll kind of talk about now is just turning all of that, as you described it, and her personality, how she was, into how this could be a positive, and how something that carries so much weight and sadness can be shared as a positive story in some things. So I know Alex gets to take part in the Fight Like Flow game, so kind of ask about it a little bit.
Yeah, like one question I was always curious about. So I know the wristbands this year were yellow, and I think like 3. Yep. And I have one right by my bedside actually.
Aww.
And 3 years ago, I believe Brophy warmed up with yellow shirts.
They did, yeah. That was our
as
first
the warm-ups.
Year. Yep.
So was yellow her favorite color? Is there any kind of significance to that color?
Yeah, yellow was her favorite color. Yellow is also the color of pediatric cancer awareness. So it was kind of the 1-2 punch. So anything related to her has always been one of the things that she loved more than life itself was butterflies. And so a lot of anytime I see a butterfly, I know that's her coming to stop by and say hi. And I think all of her friends and a lot of our family feels that same way. That was when she was itty bitty when she started falling in love with butterflies, and that's a theme that went throughout her life. So so yellow and butterflies and her love for sports and competition. She and her love for fashion. Those are kind of all of, I would say, the pillars of what we're trying to establish with all of this stuff.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So I've been coaching with Pinnacle now. I think this is my 7th or 8th season.
Yeah.
I kind of lose track,
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
a certain time.
Yeah.
So I was a a very small part of the kind of the first Fight for Flow game, but we didn't really get a ton of kind of background on how all this came about and how it relates to lacrosse. And if you don't mind just taking a few moments to just tell us about the history of how this game came about and what it means to you and your family now.
Of course. Well, so that to talk about that, I have to talk about my son Noah, the other light of my life and joy of my life. Noah, of course, as one sibling goes through all of this, the other sibling is right alongside. And so he, of course, went through all of this with us, with my husband, Blake, and I, and is one of the most wonderfully emotionally resilient and intelligent human beings on earth. He's also my ADHD kid, and sports has always been a huge part of his life. He played baseball up until his freshman year at Brophy, and then decided that he didn't want to do that anymore. And so we were trying to think through things that he could do. And he was kind of really attracted to lacrosse, but didn't pick up a stick until he was a sophomore in high school, which, as you guys know, is kind of unheard of. Yeah, like it's a really hard place to start to learn that game, especially a game and I'm still learning the game myself. The rules, the speed, the accuracy, the intelligence quotient of being with the sticks and the balls, and I mean it's kind of this whirlwind of he just loved it. He just loved it.
And he's playing for Tennessee
University
now, right?
of Tennessee. Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Fight Like Flow started his senior year. Obviously, he was a senior when Kylie passed away in September. He had played on JV the previous year. And to be super honest with you, lacrosse is the thing that I think saved my kid's life. That was his outlet for anger, pain, grief, loss, fear. Anything and everything that he had inside came out through learning how to play that game. And he was truly, like, he reminded me a little bit of Rudy, from Notre Dame. Like,
yeah, of course.
He was this kid that would never give up. He just didn't have the skill knowledge when he first started to play, but God bless the guys that were his friends. I can throw out names. Cole Rassus obviously was a huge instrumental part of this. And one of Noah's best friends, Caleb Greenfield, Josh Minton. There were a lot of the seniors of that 22 team that were his best friends. And so they decided, Noah and Cole, that they wanted to honor Kylie in some way. And they knew that the Xavier's softball team was doing a bunch of things. They retired her jersey. They dedicated the varsity dugout in her honor. Like, they did a lot of things to honor her legacy at a place where she loved. And so I think they wanted to kind of mirror that in a way that they best could. And so they thought of, well, what if we do a Fight Like Flow game? And they knew about the foundation, but again, the foundation was in its infancy at that point. And so Noah is my graphic designer. That's what he wants to do. And they created the Fight Like Flow logo with the player with the ribbon and
the outline and everything.
Yeah. And Cole took the idea to the coaches, and this was the first year that Pat Harbison was coach. And so Noah was on JV Pat's first year, and then obviously Kylie passed away his senior year when he was, and so they decided to do the Fight Like Flow game in March. of 2022 as Brophy was starting to, ramp up to a pretty great season. And what was incredible about that game, and obviously, you were there, is that Pinnacle, which is, and Brophy and Pinnacle do not get along in terms of sports competitions. Like it is unheard of to hear of two teams that are that like competitive helping each other. And I think what was so enlightening for me and impactful for me, and this a lot of this goes to Ted Pepin too, who's obviously instrumental in the Pinnacle lacrosse program, is that Pinnacle decided to be part of this. So it became that the Brophy Pinnacle game was now the Fight Like Flow game. And so we created shirts that were incredible, with the ones that you talked about, the yellow shooters, right, which all the guys wore.
Oh yeah, yep.
And I think it really showed these young men and young women too that came to the game and through softball and everything else, that life is so much bigger than the sport and the game and the championship and the small pressures that we have day in and day out. And to truly support each other and create that community that rises above competition towards compassion was critical. And
I was gonna say that just having that game on our schedule every year, I know that, players that haven't played in that game or haven't experienced, that moment of, before the game and realizing that there's so much more to lacrosse and that, nobody's guaranteed, a tomorrow to, take advantage of the time that you do have to play with your brothers and, right. Be a part of a team and everything else. It's a really important, lesson that I think, she's continuing to, pass on and give to players of, future generations that continue to, take part in this game.
Absolutely. No. And I think, when you're 17, 18, 16 years old, you're invincible. Nothing's going to stop you. Nothing's going to touch you.
Right.
And for them to slow down and think through this and support each other. Our world is so screwed up right now. For the fact that these kids had the ability to see through that and to come together and support obviously one of their own. Like these guys were Noah's brothers, and these coaches were like Noah's big brothers. And to like this game truly, and I'm not being dramatic, saved his life. I think it gave him the purpose that he was so desperately needing. He was so lost. He was, survivor guilt is a very real thing. And it was just incredible. And it brought all of our families together. And it gave us, our family specifically, just the most powerful community to just fall back on, because that's what we needed. We didn't know where we were going. We didn't know what was happening. We didn't know anything. Our world just didn't make sense without her.
Yeah. And I think I just keep coming back to this idea that, and I think in your stories about Kylie really just sort of embodied it, which is how do you make this a positive thing, right? And how do you sort of look forward?
Right.
And I think, Alex mentioned just how the kids who get to be a part of it get to hear the story and be part of something. And, I do think, we're a little biased, but I think the lacrosse community is a really powerful and great one. I think everyone probably feels that way about their sports.
I couldn't agree. I think I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think to have people come together and have sort of that just common shared positive outlook off of this story and how to move forward with that is really good. And we were just super excited to have you on here, and in that game, people will hear this recording after that game had been played, and we know that in the beginning you kind of talked to the crowd and you sort of tell the story and everything, and then you talked a little bit about the formation, I think, of the Fight Like Flow Foundation and just some things that are happening to continue the mission and what's been going on. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Of course. Yeah. So as I said, Kylie was the one that started all of this, right? She had the game plan. She had all the flow charts on the wall. This was all her idea. We were just the mechanism. She started researching when she was at UW specific organizations that really had an impact, and she wanted a couple of different things to happen. She wanted instant impact to make sure that families that were battling pediatric cancer felt some sort of relief. She wanted advocacy, and she wanted change. And I won't go into the details about the world of cancer treatment. That's another podcast for another time. But basically, what she wanted to create was an organization that could be funded separately. And she researched a lot of different things. Like a lot of this came from the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. And she kind of researched that. And the way that specific thing kind of broke the mold in terms of clinical treatments, because they funded it privately, and as a result of that got kind of through the back door of a lot of red tape to be able to bring a really important therapeutic drug to market in a very short amount of time. So that was one of the things. The other was, I don't know if you've heard of Newman's Own. They created
dressing?
Yes,
Salad
that's
dressing?
right, Paul Newman.
And the pizza and the pizza.
It's
Paul
everywhere,
Newman,
right? So they're the first of their kind in that they created the Newman's Own Foundation, which then owns the Newman's Own Corporation. So every piece, and they say this obviously on their spaghetti sauce jars, every piece of profit goes directly into the foundation, and then the foundation is a grant funding organization. So she took that model and created this, right? So Fight Like Flow Foundation owns what we have now created as the Be a Good Human Foundation, because that was Kylie's kind of mantra, was to be a good human, like push your shopping cart back, do the small things to make the big change. So we created, and she had this all mapped out again, like all we had to do was put it together. We created the Fight Like Flow Foundation, which now owns Be a Good Human Incorporated. And then what we did is we plugged in all the things that she loved. So she loved coffee, she loved tea, she loves fashion, she loves merch, butterflies, a lot of yellow. And so the Be a Good Human website is then going to sell all of these things, which then we're going to donate 100% of those profits to the Fight Like Flow Foundation, and we're going to fund very specific things. 2 things, hopefully for this year, if we can get it all taken care of properly, is there's an organization in Phoenix called Lighthouse for Hope. It's run by Hannah Cobley, who's one of our dearest friends, who is actually one of Kylie's really, really close friends. They are a local Maricopa County pediatric cancer support organization that supports teens, right? Which is tough. That's the hardest demographic of patients in terms of psychological impact and effects from treatment. And they have created, Hannah herself created this thing called the Illuminate Retreat, which takes young women, and hopefully it's soon young men, we're trying to figure that part out, on a retreat for 7 days, and provides them this connection of peer support and mentorship, of therapeutic healing. Because one of the things that Kylie researched as she was going through all this stuff when she was, in her psychology classes, and one of her teachers told her is, yes, you have this medical side of treatment, which you have to have, obviously, but it's the psychological, social, emotional side that actually really impacts survivorship statistics. So she wants to create that piece, right? Like we can't, clinical trials, medical clinical trials especially, cost millions and millions and millions of dollars and take forever. These specific trials are relatively short in time. They're relatively inexpensive. And by that, I mean like $30,000 to $60,000 for some of these social and emotional trials. And so that's what we're going to fund. She created actually 2 specific social and emotional clinical trials with her team at Seattle Children's that are now up for funding. And so that's our goal for one. And then we would also like to fund one of the Illuminate retreats that Lighthouse for Hope is doing. So that's kind of our goal for year 1. And then from there, we just expand, hopefully, to things that fall in those kind of categories.
Amazing. And one of my favorite parts in that was her belief that, putting the shopping carts back makes you a good person, because I've been saying for years that the shopping cart thing is like a litmus test for like if you're a good person or not.
No, there's social theories around this that support it, and that was kind of one of her big rants, is like she would go nuts on people because
I love that.
What does it take? So actually, so one of the things on the Be a Good Human website we're going to create is a T-shirt that says "Put your blank shopping cart back," and it's going to be, I'm telling you, that one's going to sell out.
Well, put me on the pre-order list for that, because I'm locked in.
Of course.
how can our listeners find out more ways to support donations, etc.? What are there social media sites that they can follow and keep up with?
Sure.
Like, how can we find out when the shopping carts shirts drop?
Okay, so, well, we're kind of, as I said, in the process of building these two things together. The Be a Good Human website is actually, the website is beagoodhumancoffee.com. It is not live yet, but you can actually go on the site. You can check out the site. And so that'll be the site that sells all the merch, tells Kylie's story, and that's the site that's then going to fund the Fight Like Flow Foundation. Fight Like Flow Foundation, we have an Instagram. It's at Fight Like Flow, and it's FLO. And that actually, you can look at that and look at Kylie's story. It's a public Instagram. And then eventually we're going to use that more towards a marketing perspective. And then from there, we've established all the things that you need for the foundation, the bank accounts, the Venmos, the PayPals, all of that stuff. But it hasn't been connected yet because we're still trying to figure out the structure with Be a Good Human and Fight Like Flow. So our goal is to get all of this completed by end of April, early May of this year.
That's great. Yeah. And I think, I know we've had you here for a while. I think you've got a game with your son that you got to head out to.
I do, yes.
Yeah. So we just want to say thank you again for coming on. And I think everybody's going to really enjoy hearing the story. I think even people who've been involved in it, like myself and Alex didn't get to hear some of those details and little stories and things. And I think everything that you and your family are doing is really inspiring and really helps, the memory of Kylie and just moving things in such a positive direction and finding out from that. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, and I would just like to say thank you to everyone that has been part of this. The Fight Like Flow game, I'm still in awe. I'm still in awe that it is what it is. I'm in awe of the impact that her legacy and her life has had on people and the light that she brings still. And of course, my goal is to never let that go and to make it bigger and bigger and stronger and stronger. So this is a huge part of this. So I'm so grateful for this opportunity, and I'm just grateful for what you guys do for local lacrosse in Arizona, because it's an amazing sport, and it's I just can't say enough good things about it, or you guys. So thank you very much. I'm really grateful.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
All right. Thank you.
Okie doke.
Have a great rest of the day.
All right.
Thanks
you too.
for joining us.
All right. Bye.
Thank you guys so much for listening to episode 2 of the AZ Lax Report. You guys can find us on our socials at AZ Lax Report. Be sure to comment any suggestions that you guys want to see in future episodes. And with that, we'll catch y'all next week. Thanks.